Let's go ahead and get started. So we'll talk briefly firstly about our learning objectives for the session. So what we want to be aware of. So we want to be able to understand the prevalence and impact of cyber attacks. We want to be able to identify the main motivations behind cybercrime, recognize common types of cyber attack, including indicators of attacks like phishing and impersonation. So we'll look at a couple of examples of those. Understand other common threats. So those might be threats that have existed for a long time, such as human error, it goes back to the beginning of time, but also more recent threats. So things like the rise of AI and the issues that that may pose. We'll talk about some other tips in terms of staying safe online, so things like best practices for password security, which is always a fun one to chat about, and also things like when you're working remotely, so not just when you're in the office. We'll talk about important security tools that you should be using, such as multi-factor authentication, but also understanding the potential risks of these as well. So even multi-factor authentication has some issues which we'll chat about. So first module. So a few statistics just to start with. These may be surprising. So between 2024 and 2025, 43% of businesses experienced some form of cybersecurity breach or attack, so nearly half. With 52% of businesses reporting a breach or attack at least once a month, and 29% reporting at least one a week. So obviously very prevalent. So what are the motivations? What do cyber criminals want? What are they looking to gain? First one, most obvious one, is money. So they are looking potentially to access online accounts. That might be accessing, bank accounts directly, or it might be through deceiving people into paying. So things like a phishing attack, for example, where they're asking you to transfer money to, these account details, and they're all just looking to gain financially in that way. Personal information. So again, they might be looking to gain access to accounts. If they get hold of your personal information, they might be able to gain access to your email account, for example, your Microsoft account. They might then be able to use that to commit identity fraud. So they might then be able to, if they've got access to their emails, they can impersonate you and then kind of launch attacks elsewhere and on other people. Business data. So we'll talk a bit more about ransomware attacks later on. So if they get hold of your business data, they could then potentially say, if you pay us this amount of money, we'll give you your data back. Or not, as we'll see later on. They could take that business data to use themselves. So for example, if they've got hold of perhaps a client list, they could then impersonate you and go in and kind of launch attacks on all of those different clients. And they could also sell the data to third parties as well, something like on the dark web, for example. And disruption. So if they interfere with business administration, so maybe they're able to shut down your website or one of the systems that you use, and again, encrypt files. So again, that could then end up in a ransomware attack, or their purpose could be just to disrupt your day-to-day activities. So what are the indicators of a phishing email? And we've got this kind of image here, and if you just take a minute, take a look. I mean, this one is fairly obvious that it's a phishing email. I would hope that if you received this, you wouldn't be clicking on the link. Hopefully you can see quite a lot of things in there that would highlight that it is a phishing email. So we'll run through a few of them now. So first one is the use of urgent language. So it says misdelivery important. So, it's saying, look, you need to do this now. And it kind of makes you think, oh, I've got to do it now. And you don't have time to think about it. So often they use kind of urgent language. It's not really that obvious on here, but the sender domain on this one, although it looks like it's from at dhl.com. The D in that DHL is actually a C and an L joined together. So again, it might be that, you look at the domain and it kind of looks okay, but just take a little bit of a closer look. Poor quality graphics or logos is a really common one. Obviously, poor spelling and grammar, so you can see in there some mistakes. And obviously, yeah, if you've got an email like that, don't reply to it, don't click on links, don't open any attachments. Impersonation attacks are fraudulent messages sent by someone pretending to be a trusted individual or organisation. So often they will actually impersonate an individual that you know or a contact that you have. Again, typically with the aim of deceiving the recipient into sharing sensitive information or taking harmful action. So this is an example here. Now, just from first glance, it's a little bit more sophisticated than the DHL one that we just looked at. So again, have a look through that and see, you know, is there anything in there that would make you think, oh, that's a little bit odd? There are still quite a few indicators. So again, the first thing is, you know, they're requesting money. So first of all, that's a red flag, isn't it? Or they might be asking you to provide information or perform a different type of action. Also, as you notice, it says, can you please transfer £10,000 to the attached bank details? So it's not the bank details that we already have, it's the bank details that are attached or are within the message. So again, that's another huge red flag. If you ever receive a change of bank details, either over the phone or via text or through an email, you should always contact the individual to check those, and don't just reply to the email to check them. Contact the individual on contact details that you already hold for them. So from previous emails, ideally through a phone call if you've already got a phone number for them, and make sure you double check those details. It also gives a sense of isolation. So the last line there, it says, please don't call me, I'm very busy. And also it's kind of saying, you know, yeah, it might say don't speak to anyone about this, or don't want anyone to know about this. So you feel like you're on your own. It's persuading you to bypass procedures. So it says, I know we normally follow procedure, but this is urgent and highly confidential. So it's kind of asking you not to go through those normal procedures. Also, potentially, they might just write it in a different style to what you're used to. You supposedly know this individual, they're a contact of yours. This person has written, hey, Anna. Maybe they don't ever normally say hey. Maybe they normally say hi or good morning. So again, that might make you think, oh, that's a little bit strange. But this one is obviously a lot more complex, and whoever wrote this knew that the CEO was away on a business trip at the time, so it's obviously a little bit more convincing. This one's a real example here. So this one, and this has become more common, includes an entire email chain. So it's not just a single email. There's other emails, you know, dating back and replies to emails and other contacts involved. It's creating kind of this full narrative around this event, and it makes you think that, oh, actually, I might be letting a lot of people down if I don't do this, or there's a lot of people involved in this. So again, that can be a little bit more convincing. Another technique that's a bit more recent is something called multi-channel communication. So you'll receive an email, or it might be a text message, and then the attacker will try and switch the channel of communication. So for example, in the email, there might be a phone number, and it might say, oh, if you've got any questions or you're not sure about this, give me a call. And you know, you call the number in the email, and because again of the rise of AI, they're actually using deep fakes of the individual's voice. So they're able to create this realistic sounding phone call saying, you know, yeah, everything's fine, just follow the steps in the email. And that's a lot more persuasive. And it also allows them to get around some of those email security tools, because if they're putting just a little bit of information in the email, but actually, if you give me a call, I'm going to give you a bit more information. I'm going to tell you some bank account details. They might be getting around that a little bit more easily. So that's another more common technique recently. So again, exactly the same. If there's anything at all you're not sure of in an email, you need to contact the individual using previously stored contact details, not those included within the email. Impersonation can also take the form of a website, so it's referred to as web spoofing. So criminals are creating a website. Again, it might be that you received a link in an email that goes through to the website, and they're impersonating a legitimate company site, so PayPal, for example, or Microsoft. So it could be used to gain login credentials or payment details. So always check the URL, make sure that is, you know, definitely the company's website that they're using. Again, any spelling or grammar mistakes, poor quality graphics or logos. And another thing that they're using, again, fairly recently, is a lot of these sites, and I saw one the other day actually, as they put a captcha on the first page. So you'll click the link from the email and you go to this capture screen first, and it's saying, we need to check that you're human. Okay, yeah, sure, I'll do a capture. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And you fill it in, and it then takes you through onto the site. Now, the reason they've got that capture there is, again, they are hiding the contents of that site from your email security tools. So a lot of email security tools will look at links within an email. They'll go away behind the scenes and look at, okay, what's on this website? What's this person being asked to do? If that link takes you to a capture page, then they're not going to fully be able to see what that website's doing. So that's the reason they put that in there. So if you're clicking on a link, it is coming up with a capture. Again, it's very, very likely that it's some kind of malicious website. So close it straight away. Don't obviously enter any personal information. Close your browser. Clear your cache and your cookies, just in case there is anything that's got in there, and obviously just make your IT help desk aware as well, because they might want to run a scan on your PC, or obviously make a note of the website too.